Hi everyone, welcome to an advanced build guide for the bow post Azure A.Rath update. This is going to be an extensive one, so strap in. Timestamps in the description box, but I urge you not to skip through so you understand everything better. A lot of research was done, and I'd like to give my special thanks to the Black Cat 7, an active member in Singapore's bow R&D community chat, for providing me with definitive data helping to make this video possible. I'll be covering everything from raw to all elemental builds plus part-breaking builds, and diving deep into build damage comparisons. All chart and build infographics used in this video are available in the link in my description box. So let's get into it. I'd like to preface by stressing that focus is everything for bows. With the Azure A.Rath update, there is a helm carrying 2 levels in focus, which is huge, and I'll be going through how that changes our setups. For any of you that have played around with MHN.quest as much as me, you'll realize that focus contributes to highest damage numbers in the calculator, more than any other parameter like weakness exploit, critical eye, or burst. The reason for this is that it's assuming 100% uptime of attacks. This is because the calculator cannot count in the time you spend dodging, getting hit, getting staggered, etc. The numbers are also not reflective to bows that only need 2 charges for a max charged shot, like in Black B.Blos and Azure A.Rath bows. I'll be referring to them as fast charge bows. So even if you've checked builds out for yourself, you will find this helpful, as I will be discussing these nuances through my video and sharing better estimates for fast charge bows. Before I get into the first section of the video for raw builds, I'd like to first reinforce the standard for bow gameplay. In general, you want to be a good dodger and utilize high attack speed to your advantage, or you will not be maximizing your damage output, and high focus levels like 5 can actually hurt you, especially on raw setups. Without further ado, let's get into it. Raw builds. In the old raw builds, we used to run something along these 3 variations. Focus 5, Burst 2, Focus 4, Burst 2, Critical Eye 2, Focus 4, Weakness Exploit 2, Critical Eye 2. But it's time to level up. This is the new recommended raw build to go for, giving you 5 Focus, 2 Burst, and 2 Critical Eye. This is especially good for the Black B.Blos bow, as the level 2 Critical Eye will negate the negative affinity on the bow by half, reducing the chances you get negative affinity procs to just negative 15%. In simple terms, this will improve your RNG across the board. The bow has just gotten even more overpowered. Next, we have an alternative build running 5 Focus and 3 Burst. This is not a bad choice as well, though lesser in damage output than the recommended. Not too big of a difference. But do note, if you're not able to keep the burst buff active in tough hunts, which might happen more for the B.Blos bow, but less for the Black B.Blos bow. The last option I'd like to introduce to you is what I call the min-maxing sniper build for scripted hunts. This build will give you 5 focus, 2 burst, and 2 weakness exploit. This is heavily dependent on your ability to target weak spots, so you need to play to perfection or it's not gonna be better than the other 2 builds. It does rate the highest in total damage output of all the 3 builds, but it's a small margin. Use this if you're squeezing every bit of damage or doing repeated attempts for a particular scripted hunt. By scripted, I mean you're looking for the monster to perform certain move sets, or you're intentionally playing in a way to induce certain moves. This is pretty advanced, so if you know, you know. If you want to be the very best with this min-max build, check this short video out explaining a simple trick that you would need to implement. I would like to add that this build works best on a fast charge bow. This is for the 3rd charge playstyle. It looks something like this. I'll be making a separate video to explain these mechanics better, but basically you don't want to be firing off your 2nd shot. I will be introducing this build for the Azure A.Rath fast charge bow later as well. So let's compare the builds. We are looking at the alternative Focus 5 Burst 3, Recommended, Focus 5, Burst 2, Critical Eye 2, and Sniper, Focus 5, Burst 2, Weakness Exploit 2. The light blue represents the Diablos bow, and dark blue for the black Diablos bow. These numbers are directly adapted off from mhn.quest, but it does not take into account the black Diablos bow being a fast charge bow. So the difference between the bows is kind of more like this. Basically, black Diablos 25% more. Theoretically, it's somewhere between 25 to 29%. Thank you once again to the Black Cat 7 for verifying this estimate. Two conclusions here. You should go for the recommended set, Focus 5, Burst 2, Critical Eye 2 for general use. And the Black Diablos bow is a superior weapon, but who doesn't already know that? I would like to repeat that the Sniper build would really be best on just the Black Diablos bow. But for you proficient regular Diablos bow users, maybe you can achieve a good result with it. So it's really to your own discretion. Now, if you're like me and enjoy playing elemental sets, then you're in for a ride. First up, Fire. In the old Fire build, we used to run 5 Fire attack, 3 focus, and 2 weakness exploits. But it's time to level up. This is the new recommended Fire build, giving you total skills of 4 focus and 5 fire. This build is always good for the Azure Rathalos weapon at all grades. But for Anja and Rathalos, there is a set that does better at higher weapon grade levels. Let's look at the alternative build. I call this build the Expert build. You'll be running 5 focus and 4 fire. It leads to the most optimal damage output at max grade. This build should, however, only be used if your Anja or Rathalos bow is more than grade 10.2. We'll get into why later. Lastly, we have a Sniper build for the Azure bow. This is the exact same build for min-maxing Sniper build I had introduced for Diablos and Black Diablos weapon. This build will give you Focus 5, Fire 1, 2 Weakness Exploits, and 2 Burst. For Fire, I will only be suggesting this for the fast charge Azure Rathalos bow, as it's generally risky on the other 2 regular charge bows. What you're looking at is the Expert, Focus 5, Fire 4, Recommended, Focus 4, Fire 5, and Sniper, Focus 5, Fire 1, 2 Weakness Exploit, and 2 Burst. The lightest blue represents Anjanath, medium blue represents Rathalos, and dark blue represents Azure Rathalos. These numbers are per mhn.quest, but with Azure Rathalos on 1.25 times multiplier due to fast charge. The difference in damage between the Expert and recommended sets as per mhn.quest is 2%, with the Expert set winning. But important fact, elemental attack is more beneficial at lower weapon grade levels. I'm sure some of you have heard this sweeping statement. But what constitutes lower weapon grade levels? According to the numbers, it's for grade 10.2 and below. I know that doesn't seem too low. Here is a graph where you can observe that. This chart is applicable to the Anja and Rathalos bows. The yellow line represents Fire 5, Focus 4, while the brown line represents Fire 4, Focus 5. We can see that the Fire 4 build only overtakes Fire 5 right at the end. The Focus 4, Fire 5 at lower weapon grade levels beat Focus 5, Fire 4 build until they eventually meet a crossover at grade 10.2, where Focus 5 overtakes. So numbers on mhn.quest are not all telling. Lastly, this phenomenon doesn't exactly happen the same for Azure Rathalos bow. Instead, Focus 4, Fire 5 wins at lower weapon grades through to max grade where it equalizes with the other build. Conclusion here is, go for the recommended Focus 4, Fire 5 for your Fire Elemental setup, no matter which weapon you choose, especially for the Azure A.Rath bow. I'll share a bit more opinions about weapon choices later. Next up, we have water. In the old setup, we used to run 5 water attack with just 2 focus. I can't tell you how much that made me feel like a snail. This build will give you total skills of focus 3, water 5. I know, just 1 more point in focus, but that's the best we can get. If you absolutely want to run more in focus, here's an alternative build. This build will give you total skills of focus 5, water 3. But not so fast. Let's dive in deeper so you understand how this build might play out. Alright, so we're dealing with a focus 3 build versus focus 5 build, and we need to know which is truly better. As per mhn.quest, you'll notice something like this. We are looking at alternative focus 5, water 3, recommended focus 3, water 5, and the old build, focus 2, water 5. You can ignore that. These are damage numbers of the Giratodes weapon. The focus 5 build overtakes the focus 3 build by a 0.8% margin. That is a really low margin, but it still overtakes. So which is truly better in actual gameplay? If you paid attention earlier, you might be able to predict that the focus 3 water 5 build would do you more justice. Just because elemental attack is generally more beneficial at all weapon grades under 10.2. But here's something else to support in favor of the focus 3 build. The gray line represents focus 3 water 5, while the blue line represents focus 5 water 3. Ignore the orange for now. Focus 3 build wins all the way. This doesn't make much sense if you adapt the numbers from mhn.quest. But actually, here it's been adjusted to take into account some realistic assumptions. Here's an explanation from researcher The Black Cat 7.
There are different assumptions I make here from mhn.quest. The big one is that I penalize higher level of focus in my calculations. 2 reasons. When using higher focus levels, the circle moves faster, so it's harder to release the charge perfectly, and also time is wasted sometimes when you charge faster, but have to stop or wait to dodge or reposition, so I discount the focus bonus by 25%. So instead of 30% at focus 5, I only use 20 to 0.5%.
Hope that further solidifies your understanding for why focus 3 water 5 is the superior build. Now, there is a third build here represented by the orange line, running water 4 and focus 4. But also as per this chart, it wouldn't be a good choice over focus 3. It also rates the lowest as per mhn.quest, so don't pay too much mind. Next up, Thunder. In the old setup, we used to run 5 Thunder with just 3 focus. In the new recommended Thunder set, you can now run 4 focus and 5 Thunder. Here's the alternative set where you'll be running 5 in focus and 4 in Thunder instead. Again, this is for weapon grades above 10.2. I've explained a lot previously, so this one will be quick and repeated. So you're looking at the expert, focus 5, Thunder 4, recommended focus 4, Thunder 5, and the old build, focus 3, Thunder 5. You can ignore that. Even though focus 5 build is looking better than focus 4, that you're going to want more elemental attack and less in focus as long as your weapon is under grade 10.2. So go for the recommended focus 4 set. Next up, ice. In the old setup, we used to run 5 ice with just 3 focus. In this new set, you'll be running 4 focus with 5 ice attack. Here is the expert set running 5 focus with 4 ice instead. This is for weapon grades 10.2 and above. This is a repeated explanation, so I'll be quick. So you're looking at the expert focus 5 ice 4, recommended focus 4 ice 5, and the old build focus 3 ice 5. You can ignore that. Just like for fire and thunder, weapon grade levels below 10.2 benefit more from focus 4. So go for that instead. Before we close the chapter on elemental builds, I'd like to share my personal opinions on the various elemental bows, and hopefully it'll help you pick which to invest in. Fire weapon choices. Azure Rathalos. Huge attack power aside, playstyle wise, I think it's even better than Black B.Blos that uses Pierce, of course towards fire weak monsters. Because rapid type shots rarely ever struggle against any particular monster, and rapid is kinda the best in between for both solo and multiplayer. So chances are this bow will give you the most consistent results across all hunts. And in my opinion, rapid type bows demand lesser skill, so you'll probably just always be a beast on it and not even sweat. So if you're able to get this bow, I say with all my might, go for it. Rathalos. This is the next best fire element weapon choice just from high base stats, but with pierce type shots. Accuracy with aiming and positioning is everything. Ever since the major weapon rebalances, the drop-off from non-critical distance shots can be quite punishing for pierce users. And maintaining accuracy is important for all your pierce shots to deal full damage, otherwise it's not going to be very good. On average, only about 4 of 6 pierce shots tend to land properly, but it's still a good bow. Though difficult to farm up, do your best during the Azure Rathalos week, as there will be spawn up for Rathalos as well. A.Rath. This spread bow is a great option for solo, as you can hug the monster quite easily. It can be quite a pain in multiplayer though. Rising Tide does compensate a little for its lower base stats. I'm personally a fan of the Anja bow playstyle, but one thing I can tell you is that you do need to be a good dodger. Do not underestimate the Anja bow, especially for solo, as you can easily land all 6 of your shots whenever you're in close range. This is still a very viable bow, and is much easier to farm up. Water weapon choices. Jura Totus. We only have the Jura to choose from. Until they release another water monster, this is all we have for now. Coral Puke maybe? Jura is a lower tier weapon, but it's rapid type, so that's still good at least. Thunder weapon choices. Kadachi. The free-to-play option at easy to farm bow. It's pierce type though, so I don't exactly prefer it. I'm only used to it because I play the Black B.Blos bow, but really, I'd play rapid all the time if I could. Zinogre. For whales or the free-to-play long grind. It not only has much greater base stats, it's also a rapid bow. You get the picture. Xeno bow is just great. The Legiana equivalent, but for thunder. Good for solo, good for multiplayer, good for everything. Ice weapon choices. A.Rath. I don't quite like the idea of this bow. It's not only a lower tier bow, but playing spread against the current Ice Week monsters, B.Blos, Black B.Blos, and Zinogre, would that really be a good idea? Any A.Rath Ice bow players here? Do share your experiences. Legiana. The Legi bow is superior in all aspects. Its rapid type has 2 points in Divine Blessing, amen, and it's higher in base stats. Zinogre equivalent, but for ice. So I will be recommending this into the dawn of time until something better comes out. Now, Partbreaker builds. Partbreaker builds are best run with raw bows. Of course, you'll want to be using a Black B.Blos bow that comes with 1 Partbreaker at grade 8. But no worries if you don't have that. There is no change with the original Partbreaking build on Azure Rathalos update, so here it is. You'll be running 4 in Partbreaker and 3 in Focus. 5 Partbreaker with a grade 8 Black B.Blos bow. However, there is an alternative build that I recommend only for grade 8 and above Black B.Blos bows, and I call this build the Critical Distance Manager. The Critical Distance Manager has 5 in Focus and 3 in Partbreaker. This is good in general as you do not need that much in Partbreaker levels, if you know how to manage your critical distance. If you're unsure about what I mean, check this 1-minute guide out on how Partbreaker ignores critical distance. It will help you play with this build. So you can keep 5 Focus on, we all know it's addictive, Also for 8-star monsters, Wyvern Gem Shard on broken part is only given by one part, or usually the wings. So in that scenario, you don't really need that much in Partbreaker. Before I end this video, here is a damage comparison chart of all bows in their optimal setups, aka raw recommended build and elemental expert builds. We can see that the Azure Rathalos bow is the best bow currently, dealing the highest damage across all bows. But of course, this only applies towards fire-weak monsters. Rathalos, Zinogre, and Legiana bows are pretty matched. B.Blos bow is the weakest, and next would be the Jura bow. Anjanath and Kadachi are about similar, and the black B.Blos bow is still the best all-purpose weapon. All in all, here's a bow weapons tier list for easier visualization. Credits again to the Black Cat 7. This may change after Azure Rathalos is out, but not by much. We'll try to keep you guys updated. Surprise fact. Here's a correlation to help you understand how good the Azure Rathalos and Black B.Blos bows are. These fast charge bows take 4.1 seconds to charge and fire at focus 0, whereas a regular charge bow takes about 4.2 seconds at focus 5. So essentially, fast charge bows like Azure Rathalos and Black B.Blos bows have inherent focus 5. That's how good these bows are, all things considered. Alright guys, that's all I have. If you found this helpful, please leave a like for the YouTube algorithm or share your thoughts in the comments. It will help the video be discovered by more. Again, all damage charts and build infographics are available in the link in my description box for your further reference. I hope they help you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I wish you guys all the best for the upcoming Azure Rathalos event. Happy hunting, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye-bye.